Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Outcasts take control of the bamboo forest preserves of Ebonscale. KOTT News were late to the scene, but received an official statement that read simply, Panda is bis. While in Ebonscale, KOTT News crews set off a few sample hanabis for some personal oohs and ahs. Quickly to the weather, and thanks to diligent invasion responses last night, today's afternoon will be free of repair. But once more after sunset, when the temperatures drop, be on the lookout for another 30% chance of corruption invasion. One roster submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the Covenant converts of E-Picnic Club attack the Marauders of Gorilla Town for Crown and Kingdom of the Western Monarch's Bluff. The newcomers of E-Picnic Club aren't going to be satisfied with simply laying down a blanket as they try to force their way into the fort without a reservation. But Gorilla Town didn't give them permission to gather on the bluff in the first place either, so they'll be sure to show these new zealots the way of the Marauder. We'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Gorilla Town keep control of the Monarch's Bluff by kicking sand on the blanket of E-Picnic Club. KOTT News crews were witness to the carnage of the Picnic for Peace, as can be seen now on KOTT Classic. After the battle, the Marauders were quick to leave for the evening, seeking more glory elsewhere. But while in Pridewind, KOTT News met several new and returning refugees to the island, so be on the lookout for these fresh faces in chest runs and invasions. Speaking of invasions, another ace last night by the invasion response squads of the island, so there's little upkeep for the morning cruise. But requests for volunteers have already begun for tonight's forecast, as northern crosswinds bring with them a 40% chance of invasion across the island. 2 lineup submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Marauders of Nice Deck assail the syndicate members of Commit for control of the master fishing and shrimping delta of Reekwater. Nice Deck returned to Reekwater to give it another go, but have they improved their strength enough to overcome the basic strategies of Commit this time? A close matchup last time, Commit returned to the goat-infested battlefield with a more prepared mindset, executing a strategy to stay outside of the fort. Then, the syndicate members of Commit assail the Marauders of Gorilla Town for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. Regardless of the outcome in the swamps, Commit forces have to get ready for offense, all warmed up to fight one of the island's strongest companies. Some members of Gorilla Town were reported to have left last night's matchup early, specifically to be well rested for a more prepared attacker. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Marauders of Nice Deck conquer the keep and take control of the master shrimping delta of Reekwater. KOTT News were on the scene and spoke with company leadership about the outcome.
Hello, my friend, JChalant, KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. Would you care to say a few words about your victory tonight?
Yeah, John, we ran it back with them. We fought against Commit about a week ago. Got into fort, didn't go very well. We thought we had a good showing, though. Thought we could run it back, go again, and we did it. Here we are. Owners of Reekwater. We got the swamp.
Well, it was a tight, close fought, and in the final moments, able to get through there. Was there any particular moment that stood out in your mind out there on the battlefield?
I got to give it to Pebbles. Great shot calling there. He gave us a really good strat to get to fort in a timely manner, and then after that, just coordinated pushes into fort, held respawns well, and took it from there.
Yeah, Pebbles is pretty good at what he does. Well, now that you're in charge of Reekwater, do you have any ambitions for the hamlet? Or are you going to extend beyond the region?
Yeah, we'll get everything cleared up here, get everything upgraded again, and then we'll look to see what's next. We're definitely looking to expand.
Very well. Well, congratulations on your victory. Is there anything else you might like to tell the citizens of Eternum in this moment?
Thank you, everybody, for watching, and get ready. Nice deck is coming.
Later in Cutlass Keys, KOTT News caught up with a Marauder mercenary to discuss their victory there as well.
Well, since you were in that fight, let me ask you about it. It was a full 30 minutes outside of the fort. How do you feel they came at you tonight?
It was a good war, John. They did what they came here to do, and unfortunately we just came out on top.
Yeah, well, that happens sometimes. Anybody on your team whose performance outshined everybody else tonight?
There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's more of it's a team effort. They all did great.
Well, that's what I like to hear. Well, you guys are isolated here on I say isolated, quote unquote, on the southwestern peninsula of the island. Are you content to hold this region, or will you be looking to expand beyond?
Well, John, looking at the map right now, I think we're in a good spot. I think we got our name out here. I think we might just keep doing what we're doing and playing the game.
Overwhelming invasion forces last night, leading to an unfortunate pillaging of several city services in Twillin, an afternoon of sunshine to prepare for the upcoming Medley Fair and contribute to the relief efforts in Weaver's Fen along the way, then be on the lookout for another night of incursion from the relentlessly invading forces of corruption across 20% of the island. 2 more submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. First up, the Marauders of Emotional Damage assault the legendary hero worshippers of Outcast for control of the always contentious Restless Shore. Emotional Damage, always looking to test their skills against the opposing forces of the island, head east in their attempt to secure the fort at the top of the Mudhill. Outcast have been king of the Mudhill once before, but fell victim to the anarchy of the archipelago. This time, they'll have the lessons of the past to teach them their future. Then, the zealots of OPR Esports assail the Marauders of Gorilla Town for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. OPR Esports have determined that the next step in their journey goes through Gorilla Town, and so move to secure the hyssop and spice production facilities of the island. The constant harvesting rotation in the Fairweather region of First Light continues to produce aggressive conflict as factions vie for control of the island's spice flow. We'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Marauders of Emotional Damage make their way up the Mudhill and claim control of the eastern Restless Shore. KOTT News were on the scene and spoke with company leadership about the fight.
Congratulations on your victory here in Restless Shore, making your way up the Mudhill by the end of the match. With 2 minutes to spare, you're through the gates and onto the flag. Would you care to take us through any pivotal moments you saw out there?
Well, we had a plan. We went out there and we decided to hit things with the pointy end.
So no clubs or maces, just all pointy ends, huh?
That's it. That's all you need.
Well, was there anybody who was especially proficient in using their pointy ends out there tonight?
Well, we had a guest in my group tonight, Rippity. Shout out to him on Twitch. He hit a lot of things with his pointy end. Envoy over here looked very good hitting things with his pointy end as well. And Rohan, she's my #1 bruiser right over there, kicking butt. Lots of pointy ends there.
Rippity, I understand he normally has Fire Staff Ice Gauntlet, so he had a little pointy end action out there tonight, huh?
Well, ice spike, icicles, they have points on them.
Well, my friend, once again, you're in charge of another hamlet. What are your intentions now that you're the boss of Moon Bay?
We're going to rule gently with an iron fist.
Later in First Light, KOTT News crew spoke with the ruling Spice Lords about their outcome as well.
Well, thanks for joining me and giving me a few words about your fight tonight. Would you care to take us through how the outcome went down?
It was a good fight. They put up a good fight. I have nothing but respect for our enemies. I want to give a shout out to Kaiko for the heals. They were on point. But I do have to criticize that she said chai tea. Chai is not a flavor. Chai means tea. Just PSA.
After the action, KOTT News found time to get in a few OPRs before calling it a night. getting ever closer to completing the Season 1 journey. Turning to the weather for today, and after holding off the corrupted last night, the afternoon will be clear and peaceful all day long. But once more, after sundown, the island's invasion forces will become emboldened and rise up across 30% of the regions. No submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by Peace, but we'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as you might expect after an evening of peace. KOTT News crews took the opportunity to help the citizenry, first by constructing a wayward inn for wary travelers, then by participating in volunteer work in Reekwater, defending against the forces of corruption. KOTT News kept morale high by motivating the Invasion Response Squad members with fireworks set to the inspirational music of Discord. And while not every volunteer was called for duty, that didn't stop one citizen from taking out major corruption portals in First Light, diligently attempting to keep the region pristine. While in First Light, KOTT investigative crews encountered an unusual weather phenomenon, even more evidence indicating pending doom for First Light. Today's Doppler radar forecast calls for another afternoon of sunshine all day long, keeping corruption at bay. But when the night falls and the loneliness calls, the corrupted will want to dance with somebody across 30% of the island. Another lineup submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the Marauders of Iron Reavers attack the syndicate members of G is for Greatness for control of the rain-drenched mountain region of Morningdale. Iron Reavers return to try again after being turned away last week, but they've been improving their skills and feel confident in their field tactics for this fight. But G is for Greatness get ready to prove how great they are. Entrenched in the keep down by the river, they prepare to repel any amphibious assault by the Marauders. We'll have any late-breaking outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as the forces of I is for Isabella hold on to the rain-drenched mountain region of Morningdale. KOTT News crews were on the scene in Greyvale and spoke with the victors who were in a hurry.
Congratulations on your victory out there holding Morningdale throughout the entire duration. You held 2 points up until the final 2 minutes when you yielded Alpha, but let's not count that. How do you feel the fight went out there for you?
Yeah, I think it went pretty well. I'm not disappointed by any means. They had some pretty good mercs, but at the end of the day, it didn't really affect anything for us.
Indeed, it didn't. Well, is there anybody out there who really stood out in their efforts tonight for you?
Yeah, honestly, Ninjas, man, best player I've ever played with, man. Great teammate, puts up the damage, positive attitude. I'll play with that guy any day. He's my duo for life.
A quick civic matter to attend to, if you don't mind me asking. Tonight is the first night of the global draft, as they say. Will you be attending that, or any members of your company be attending that in part or in whole?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure a majority of us have signed up. We're hoping for the best on us. We have some pretty good, talented players here, and a lot of them do deserve to be drafted, so we'll see how it all turns out.
And do you feel that will take away from your efforts to defend your regions here?
Nah, I think we're good. We're all good. Little nitpick group, and we'll push through and hopefully do both if we can.
Well, is there anything else that you might like to say to the citizens of Eternum before I let you go to your debrief?
Yeah, thank you guys for supporting us if you do. If not, and you guys are an enemy, I guess prepare for the worst eventually. And my governor, board kid, top-notch governor, and Zarita also, who's not technically a governor, but technically is in our heart. Much love.
Many members of the community were anxiously awaiting the release of news from distant lands last night, but eventually the balls fell and the draft order was set. KOTT News will bring you more on this story as it develops. Many more citizens stepping up to volunteer in Eternum last night as KOTT News crews were clearing major corruption portals. Aiden Grayson and Stellated Whales in particular contributed their efforts in fighting back the corruption for most of the evening. Quickly to the weather for today, and even though it's going to be another afternoon of sunshine all day long, Volunteers should be ready to mobilize as the corruption invasion forces launch attacks across 40% of the island tonight. 2 more submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Up first, the legendary hero worshippers of Outcast attack the syndicate members of JDB's Kitchen for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. Outcast forces have regrouped and reinvigorated themselves, and now seem ready to re-expand across the island from their controlled territories in the northwest. JDB's Kitchen have been reserved in their aggressions of late, exercising the don't start nothing won't be nothing protocols, but now that Outcasts have started something, there will be something. Meanwhile, the syndicate members of Commit assail the marauders of Nice Deck for control of the master fishing and shrimping region of Reekwater. Wasting no time in the execution of their right to rematch, Commit forces return to Reekwater and set up an assault camp surrounded by the goats, preparing themselves to butt into the fort. The marauders of Nice Deck, feeling the pressure of Commit squeezing in on them from 2 fronts, but this is the kind of environment their proponents inform me they thrive in. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Commit re-secure the master fishing and shrimping region of Reekwater. KOTT News were on the scene and got a brief word from one of the participants. Congratulations on your victory here in Reekwater, successfully executing your right to rematch and reclaiming the hamlet in the name of the Syndicate. How do you feel about your victory tonight?
Dude, I feel great, man. It was a whole lot of fun. Commit here had a fun plan where they, like, totally baited them, and they'd, like, thought, you know, we just got 2 points for free, and then went over and killed them, and then went inside and killed them some more, and then took the thing, and then we won. Hooray!
Excellent job out there. Was there anybody who stood out in their performance for you tonight?
I think that Whirl Whip guy, he's a bruiser. He had, like, 16. He's crazy. All right, him. He did good.
Later, KOTT news crews practiced their footwork in OPRs, avoiding tryhards who were sweating the broadcast in a blowout. Speaking of trying hard, citizens of Eternum were hard at work putting down the corruption in Shattered Mountain last night, taking their revenge on the corruption forces who had breached the gates in Weaver's Fen earlier in the night. That unfortunate breach, a command decision, as citizens were evacuated prior to the 3-minute invasion. Citizens wishing to help with relief efforts are encouraged to stop by the mission boards in Twillin to assist. No mission is too small. Looking at the weather for today, and the afternoon will once again be clear of corruption forces, giving ample opportunity for relief efforts. But citizens are reminded that once the sun goes down, things will get sketchy as the corruption forces will rise up once more across 20% of the island. 4 more submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPco. Remember, if it isn't LARPco, it's cardboard. Tonight, the Covenant PVXers of Tropical House assail the Marauders of Emotional Damage for control of the barely controllable Restless Shore. Tropical House are looking for another beachfront region to call home, and this time they've decided to play King of the Mudhill on the eastern shores. But Emotional Damage aren't going to give it up so easily, as they stand ready to test their mettle against their old foe once more. Meanwhile, the Marauders of Dogged Down attack the Syndicate members of Commit for control of the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. Nothing is known of this new group of loosely organized marauders, but if they're seeking to divide the Syndicate, they could seriously disrupt trade routes with a victory tonight. Commit, riding the wave of securing the eastern tri-state area last night, find themselves with a hard decision: the unknown aggressor or the heavyweight title. As the Marauders of Gorilla Town challenge the champs of Commit for their heavyweight title and the right to rule over Everfall, the former heavyweight champs return to the main ring to reclaim their title belt. But will they find a fully prepared group of combatants to spar with? Commit has their work cut out for them, but do they have a sufficient roster to test the newcomers and be guaranteed a test of endurance against this island superpower? Later, the legendary hero worshippers of Outcast assault the marauders of Gorilla Town for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. Outcast forces may be looking to take advantage of an exhausted Gorilla Town, who may be mentally, if not physically fatigued after their earlier attack. But with the late start time, Gorilla Town may be able to call in reinforcements who have retained their defensive eligibility for what should be a great nightcap. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.